Welcome to Cyber Bytes Insights Podcast, the most relevant podcast source on cybersecurity, education, innovation, and outreach. I'm your host, Maggie Dillon, and today we are joined by Dr. Brian McElyea. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Likewise. And I want to read your bio. I always start out this way so everyone knows a little bit about you before we get into questions here. Dr. McElyea is an information security executive with more than 20 years of experience in cybersecurity and privacy in the federal government space with DoD, VA, health, civil, and intel, as well as state and local customers. Brian holds a TS and SCI clearance. He currently serves as the Vice President of Cyber Operations for the Reli Group. Those duties encompass oversight over all cyber operations, both business development and program for the entire company. Prior to joining Reli, Dr. McElyea was the Chief Cyber Strategist for Peraton, and prior to that, a Chief Information Security Officer for Northrop Grumman Health Division, and later served as a technical fellow and senior consultant for cybersecurity and privacy for NG. He worked in large federal agencies and large and small businesses alike, and has served as chief financial officer for hospitals and medical research facilities, using his passion for understanding the arts and practice of compliance in organizations to support our current customers. He also has a PhD in knowledge management from Walden University, a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University, and a bachelor's of science from Widener University in business administration. Also proudly served as a naval officer for 24 years. Thank you for your service, by the way. I have two grandfathers that were also in the Navy, so great company to have. I love your background. It's exciting.
Thank you. A little unique, but
It is. You know, every single guest that I have has such an interesting depth to them. And we've spoken a little bit before this, just getting to know each other. Obviously, Reli Group has joined forces now with the Cyber Bytes Foundation. We are so excited about this venture. And that being said, no one's going to introduce your organization better than you would. So if you would, please tell everyone a little bit about Reli Group.
Certainly. Reli Group is an interesting company, certainly very progressive. It's a decade old. It's a mid-tier management consulting firm where the tagline for the company is Trusted Navigators for Change. And I want to focus just on that word, navigators. And so, Maggie, when you think of a navigator, what do you think of?
All different directions, but also focused.
Focused and a guide to create a path that's trusted. And I think that's really how I would sum up Reli Group and our over 600 professionals is the expertise that they have and the level of focus and attention and detail and just commitment to the customer's no-fail mission is really what drew me here from very large companies. So that their support of the mission. You mentioned my Navy background. That's being 25 years in the United States Navy was a significant part of my life, and giving back to the country and continuing to serve the country in this kind of capacity, because Reli only works for the federal, state, local, and territorial and tribal entities. So they don't do private business. And so they primarily work in the health and the national security sectors. If I'd sum up their specializations, IT modernization, cybersecurity, of course, and we'll talk about that in depth, data management, program integrity, and clinical quality, as well as health informatics. So that's Reli. We're certainly continue to grow and continue to evolve particularly on the cybersecurity side, as our nefarious actors are evolving daily. And so we've got to stay ahead of that and be able to be that navigator for change for the federal government.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. A lot of the things that you tapped into, we are having tons of people wanting to partner with us, but yours is very specialized. And one of the reasons that you joined CBF, I find to be very perfect situation here with regards to our Zero Trust Lab. So could you expand a little bit on that, perhaps?
Yeah, certainly my top priority at Reli is to advance our defensive cyber operation capabilities. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. One of them is through, academics and industry partnerships and foundations such as Cyber Bytes Foundation. But when I think of Cyber Bytes Foundation, and we looked pretty hard at Cyber Bytes Foundation before we made a decision to step into that entity. And when we looked at it, it was everything that we found sort of matched where we were going, and from the center of excellence that you have, which has the cyber lab, which you're building out a zero trust uh, lab, and that's immensely interesting to us, and that you didn't. It wasn't. I guess a short way of saying it was, you brought in top tier, high powered companies such as Zscaler and Varonis and Microsoft, and those were the ones who spoke at your Zero Trust conference or symposium. And with that, it's just not, for a company, a mid-sized company or a small company, you don't get that kind of exposure. And so being able to partner with the Cyber Bytes Foundation and get exposure into your center of excellence, but also where you're going from the future with the cube for artificial intelligence and data analytics, advanced data analytics, and of course this being a cyber professional yourself, being able to keep abreast and ahead of what the nefarious actors are doing and how they're using adversarial AI and such. We've got to be on the cutting edge along with them, and so entities like yours, who's going out and building these world-class facilities, it gives us an opportunity to join in with a consortium of businesses, but also the top tier talent that you bring in, the top tier leaders in the industry. So we get to have that kind of exposure, which is really pretty hard to find out there. And we wrestled with, were we going to try to build our own lab, cyber lab? And looking at the return on investment, looking at the expenditures that it would take to do that, looking at other partnerships with other maybe possible academic institutions. Your foundation came out on top as the best investment for Reli. So we proudly stepped in to be a partner, and we're just signing the paperwork now. So we're looking forward to a bright future with Cyber Bytes Foundation.
Likewise, you said a couple of things that tugged on my heartstrings, and I want to go back. The best teams are the ones that believe in one another, and I see that across the board with our partnerships. And we're really big on quality versus quantity, and we want to work with the best of the best, more importantly, veterans. And when you bring all of those things together, it is exceptional. And just the way you even explained that, I think that really encompassed the partners that we're looking to work with for many years to come as we expand this entire campus. So thank you for those words. And likewise, our internal team here, we all work very hard. We're just as dedicated and passionate to our national security. And as we identify incoming companies or even sponsors, donors, things of this nature, it has to make sense from many different angles, but also, is it cohesive to the overall mission? And is it something that makes sense later on down the road? So we're really excited to have you. And I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts on our Zero Trust event? And I'm selfishly asking that because we have so many events coming up and we want to get people over there.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. And for several different reasons. I attend a lot of conferences, and have attended a lot of conferences, and typically it's the the presenters don't have much time to be able to spend individually with the audience members. And what you created for the Zero Trust Symposium was a very intimate setting. And we had almost an hour before the session, and you're talking to the industry leaders in this from Microsoft and Varonis and Zscaler, and so to have that kind of opportunity, and then just have it was almost to use your words, almost like a fireside chat as we sat there, and they had a terrific moderator from Zscaler, and it was just to be able to listen to them and direct your questions to them in a setting like that is just something you don't get an opportunity to do very often. And then the opportunity afterwards to follow up and be able to ask them questions, and their participation in your Zero Trust lab really was the wrapper around it for me. To say that this is really a high quality organization who has relationships in very high industry leaders, and that's something for not even just small and mid-sized, but any business to get that kind of opportunity and in a non-competitive manner. It was a sort of a academic almost kind of setting to me, where you were just, everyone was there to learn from one another, and there was no pushing an agenda by any one business. So it was a true learning opportunity, and I'm very excited about the Zero Trust Lab. But we want to be actively engaged in supporting that from Reli's perspective.
Absolutely. The education piece is something we are really big on, because obviously we're bringing you in for certain things with regards to products, services, some of the cybersecurity initiatives that we're being held to with executive orders and whatnot, but also the education. We're at a deficit of 3.5 million professionals, give or take, in the cybersecurity industry, which and so we're trying to really educate all of us, still keeping up on our skill sets and helping with veterans transition into this industry, as well as educate their children, the generations to come, partnering with higher educational universities, technical schools, bring other consortiums together and really become a solid network here in the United States, and then obviously build out globally. It's something that is critical to overall success for everything that we're all trying to put together. And I'm so glad to hear you say you felt that academia, because that's exactly what we try to go for. So it's something that we feel is very beneficial to anybody that comes and visits, even if you're just walking in to grab a coffee at our coffee bar. So really, really appreciative of those words.
And I think that you hit it on the head with the people piece. There's a reason why we say people, process, and then technology in that order. Because people are the first element and the necessary element and the greatest challenge and on all fronts. And so, the shortage that we have in this profession is really a national security issue. And President Biden underscored that in some of his recent efforts to try to enhance and attract more workers into the federal workspace for cybersecurity, realizing that we have to have them. And then equally, those of us who are in the profession have to find ways in which we can do things that allow us to be more productive and try to find ways that are less labor intensive in our activities by the use of technology and such as AI and those types of things. So for me, I always start with the people, and I think about it from how do you attract, develop, and retain the people that you have in your organization, and how do you grow the future? And that's another reason why we partnered with Cyber Bytes. was what you're doing in relationship to growing the future generation of cybersecurity professionals. And so we certainly, from a corporate standpoint, that's important, but that's extremely important to me personally. And I am going to find ways to be engaged in that from a contribution standpoint, as far as going out and helping teach and share the experiences of that I've got over the last 21 years now in this field, and then and also being able to contribute financially to help those individuals have opportunities that otherwise, if it wasn't for organizations like yours, they wouldn't have those kind of opportunities, and it's so valuable for our country. And so that is another area where I think we will play.
I love that. And you hit the nail on the head with regards to workforce. I did 15 years of executive recruiting, starting out with Lockheed Martin. And it started out recruiting doctors, which that was a whole other beast in and of itself. But over those years, it went through all industries. C-suite, started filling out board of director roles, switched over to IT. And when I got to the IT professionals and cybersecurity, this is something that I don't see a lot of discussion on because it's hard to audit. It's hard to get KPIs on these type of information, but I've done several thousands of interviews. And what I would say is, from my experience, about 50% of the people that I interviewed, C-suite included, were not qualified for the job. So we have to take that into risk mitigation. And what does that mean? What's the best thing we can do? Educate and talk about it and have these conversations and speed up trainings and courses and get more out there for, that knowledge, that intellect, and those stories and tribal knowledge. More importantly, we are really needing the tribal knowledge from people like yourself and everyone else in this business to help share and help us all succeed. So I love what you just said there. Kind of leads me into you. Tell us a little bit about you. I know you did in your bio, but I always want to talk about what was the key driver. Obviously, you were a veteran, but your career's gone pretty expansive, and I'm sure you're well traveled. And I just want to know, with regards to maybe even your own family and things that are important to you. Tell us a little bit of what makes you tick, why you chose a career in cybersecurity in particular, and maybe some of your passions regarding that.
It was somewhat accidental. I was involved in the healthcare side of in the Navy, and so I was always passionate about having a positive impact on the health of individuals, and being able to create the safety and welfare of those individuals. Writ large, the American public. And so the Navy was a perfect fit for that kind of passion. I got into finance at the second half of my 25 years, and went into the CFO route, and so that took on an interesting kind of dynamic, because finance, at least in the military, is about the art and practice of compliance, as you mentioned in my bio. And at its core, a lot of cybersecurity is about the art and practice of compliance. And we talked about the people aspects and things. And so I was kind of sitting around the house after I retired, and a friend of mine who I'd worked with called me and said, we got an opening here for somebody to help implement HIPAA for the United States Navy. And we know you've been in the Navy, and we know you've got a lot of exposure to the Bureau of Navy Medicine and Surgery, so would you mind helping? I got involved in HIPAA implementation. Again, a lot of that was about the art and practice of compliance. And when I got finished up with that, they asked me to switch to cybersecurity. I didn't have any experience, none at all, in cybersecurity. But I liked the parallels to having a positive impact on the American public. And I sort of seen that, well, I think this is an opportunity for me to really continue to give back, and also to do good. And that was kind of my driver to start with. It wasn't at least initially, it wasn't the technical tease. It was really going back to the people and the mission and the reasons why we are doing these things and what's the impact, and that bigger sort of picture of cybersecurity and from a national security perspective. And so that really got me into the cyber field, and I just kind of progressed through just an sundry number of different positions to get to the vice president of cyber ops here at Reli. It's been an interesting journey. There's just so much at stake here. If I view this as if an agency gets breached, every American loses. And so I look at it like, if we have an opportunity, our government colleagues entrust us, if they select us for a contract, to do really important work. And so it drives me. I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to disappoint the American public, who's we're using their taxpayers to pay us to do the work. So, it's really that piece about if an agency gets hacked, we all lose. So what can we do collectively in order to help the government through maybe our government public-private partnersps? Support through entities like IACT, who's very, very, has a great reputation and has a great business model, if you will, of being able to connect industry and government together and work synergistically to address the challenges of the government. And so there's lots of different ways that we can get involved to help ensure the safety and the security of the American public and their data that they entrust the government with, because I talk about there's so much at stake. We can't have it would be very detrimental to us if the citizens lost trust in the government to protect their data. That would be very detrimental to us. And so I don't approach our contracts in a very light manner. I look at that as my first and foremost responsibility is to make sure our teams are doing everything that we can and above and beyond to be able to secure the systems and the networks and the data for the federal government in state and local and tribal. So I'd say it's that drive of making sure that continuous quest of excellence. And Nike used to have a saying: there is no finish line, and there is no finish line in cybersecurity. So when I talk to the people entering this field, it's the first thing I tell them is that there's no finish line. You have to have a constant quest for excellence, and you've got to be driven. You've got to be self-driven, and you've got to hopefully see the bigger picture of what you're doing and the impact that it has. Even on the private side, the same thing. If we get our private entities get hacked, it's very detrimental to our society. So we have to have the diligence and the discipline that this field requires.
You mentioned the word. I got into it by accident, and I'm a believer there are no accidents personally, but you hit the nail on the head. This is a 24/7 unforgiving industry. It does not stop, and it takes a very high level of intelligence, of discipline, of effort and seriousness. And maybe you get this too, but I get family and friends saying, "You're so serious anymore." And I want to be like, if you knew what we deal with all day, you'd understand why. And then you kind of take a deep breath and a step back and realize there is and you kind of, you didn't mention it, but I saw some things. You're talking about having the citizens not lose faith in their government, but some of these things they can't understand, especially if they're just starting up their business. They don't really understand hacking or cybersecurity. They're just trying to get money to keep food on the table and these types of things. So maybe it's a matter of having these types of exact partnerships, these types of podcasts, conversations to help everybody understand what's at stake, all of our protection for our families, our loved ones, and our country long term.
Yeah, that's much more eloquent than the way I put it. So I think too that there's just such uh, a, a morphosis in this profession that we we have to learn a new a new set of terminologies and a new skill set too, that historically your CISOs and security operations center leads and such didn't have to have the business expertise that you need today. And so, you have to be able to go from the server room to the boardroom to articulate your case about what are the boardroom speak is ROI, return on investment, and to me, in the cyber world, ROI is risk of incident, and so being able to put things in a business context and then take it back and be able to explain that back to the team, the cyber team, and so that we start to have that communication from a business perspective, because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a business objective like every other business objective that an organization has, and it's a competition for resources. And that's where I think that one of the reasons why I have been successful is because I came from a finance background too, and so I sat in the boardroom and I listened to the decisions that they were making and how they wrestled with very, very difficult choices, and it come down to risk management and what's the greatest risks to the organization and where do the limited resources that they have, how do they cut that pie in order to be able to address the multitude of items that they've got on their plate. And so that's a difficult decision for boards to wrestle with. And I think that this field, we have to be more business minded now than ever before.
Working with CFOs, I've heard the exact same comments. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I even brought it up in one of our last podcasts with AJ, and we talked about the bringing together of business executives and cybersecurity executives to help us specify what we need done appropriately, because there is that disconnect. You start talking to your Uber techies here, and they're not going to care about your business operations, and vice versa. So I've heard it from so many CISOs and CIOs saying they don't understand, they won't cut a check for XYZ, and I've literally had to help. Well, how do you approach them? And as soon as I hear some of the feedback, I see where the issues are. So everyone's trying to get their objectives complete and their goals solidified, but it's been challenging. And so these partnerships, especially with amazing and outstanding, exceptional people like yourself, leaders, veterans, companies like Reli Group, and organizations like Cyber Bytes, all coming together, it's critical to everything that we're trying to do here. So I really appreciate you going into detail about that. What final question to you? I did not write this down. I'm going to hopefully catch you off guard. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I've got a wonderful team, so that helps. It goes back to the people first. Got an incredible team of leaders who oversee the operations across Reli Group. But what keeps me up at night is, are we doing enough to stay ahead of the adversaries? And so, we, like everybody else, you got limited resources pulled in multiple different directions, and just high burnout rate in this profession too, and particularly in our security operations centers. And so, I go back to this: how can we attract, develop, and retain the people? And from a cyber person, some people say, "Geez, you harp a lot on the soft skill stuff," and I think the soft skills in this profession are equally important as the hard skills, and especially given some of the people challenges that we have, and the fact that you're. I think that 89% of all breaches are a result of a human error, and so if we're going to spend our resources and simply look at where do you best spend your resources, if that statistic is in fact correct, that 89%, that tells you ought to be spending a lot of money to make sure that the people side of it is shored up first. And you do that through the technology, of course, too. That's a obvious connection, but it is this the piece about attracting and developing and retaining the people, and then the developing side is where I said we need to be able to keep people one step ahead of the adversary, because they are very well funded, and they are very patient. And so, and we have to get it right all the time, and they just have to find one vulnerability to get in. And so, when the government came out with the mandate with zero trust, and I think that is such a big step for the government, and there's certainly a lot of work and a lot of resources going into the execution of that. But at the end of the day, I'm hearing conversations that I've never heard before with some of our colleagues, and about how they can prevent lateral movement in the organization, and what type of identity and access management, and protecting the data, and having the high valued assets identified, and data categorization, and on and on and on. These are intense discussions now happening within the agency. So I think that's a very healthy thing. That we're now having those kinds of open discussions, and trying to find ways in which we can implement the zero trust architectures in a way that isn't extremely burdensome, and takes into account all of the investments that have currently taken place in an agency, and then by exception start replacing things and putting the various tools that we have in place in order to be able to secure their systems and networks and data. So I would say it's the keeping our team ahead of the adversary. That's what I would say keeps me up at night more than anything.
Positive note. And I really hope that your words really open the eyes to people watching this, so they understand the severity of what we are all working on, the pressure on everyone's shoulders, and we all feel it. But for those who, one, don't care about technology, they don't care about what element of human risk they are, they don't care about any of the things that we've talked about in this conversation, please know how hard we're working to keep you safe and protected. You in particular, sir, thank you for your service. I say thank you for your service to all veterans, but also to the cybersecurity professionals as well, because I understand the dedication and level of loyalty and commitment and gut-wrenching days it takes out of all of us. So thank you so much for all of your words. They were super inspiring. And from my end, I would not be Miss Dillon if I did not say, together we will not fail. And if we keep pushing forward and having conversations like this and partnering together, there's no way that we don't really make a difference and an impact against adversaries, but more importantly for our children, and helping inspire them to want to come on board and support what we're doing. And in the meantime, let's have some fun with our summer camps and some of the drones that we're building and the robotics and whatnot. There are a lot of fun things coming out of this, and I think it's just a matter of how do we balance it all in the complexity of that juggling game, so to speak. But I really appreciate everything that you just said. If anyone wanted to get in touch with you, Brian, what's the best route to go?
They could find me on LinkedIn and just drop me a note. That's part of my responsibility too, personally, is, I want to bring the next generation in. I'll just close with that there's only about 23% females in this profession, and that's another pet peeve of mine. That I'm very proud of Reli. Reli has 43% females in our cyber teams. So that's an incredible statistic, and one you don't find much out there. But there are a lot of different universities out there doing good work to push females into this profession. So for the females who are listening, come join us, please. We need you here. My wife would say, us men have screwed things up long enough. It's time to get women in here and straighten it out. So.
I know. I love that. Your marketing director, she told me what a women's advocate you were. And obviously I preach it all the time. But yes, we absolutely need more women. And I say that because we bring an element of different methodology, different solutions. We act a little different, but together it's such an amazing pairing when we work on projects, and we get it done a little bit more cohesive sometimes. And I don't say that to discriminate, because I've seen projects where it's all women, I've seen projects where it's all men, but I've also seen projects where it's all together, and I see which ones are more successful, and it's the ones that are all together. So thank you for being an advocate. Those words mean a lot. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, this has been a production of the Cyber Bytes Foundation. Again, I'm Maggie Dillon. If you'd like to get in touch with me, just like Brian, you can find me over on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message. I love to connect. But in the meantime, stay up, stay strong, stay safe.